Hello. Well, as you see, back in my office. Oh, what a relief. But while I was stuck with my strained back, I had plenty of time to read the newspapers, and I came across this article here in the Daily Telegraph. Let's see how close I can get it to the camera. BBC forced to admit Iran war threat was fake news. How do I put this? Well, there's no easy way to put it. The BBC has a culture of dishonesty. It used to be a media company that had a responsibility to entertain, shows, spectacles. Put this away, yeah. Shows, spectacles, circuses, that sort of thing. And then it had the other responsibility, which was to inform. News programmes and current affairs and that sort of thing. And the two were to be entirely separate. That is, there was supposed to be a separation between reality and fantasy. The entertainment was the entertainment, and the news was supposed to be as dispassionate as possible. Although people look back to some sort of a golden age, that never really existed. It was never like that. Because news is compiled by people, and people have opinions. And the sort of people who go into the world of entertainment are both full of their own opinions, and because of the sort of attention they get, also they're encouraged to be full of their own self-importance as well. It's not a healthy combination. So there's this culture of dishonesty. And the joke is that they insist, even to themselves, that they're pretty even-handed, and they're constantly slapping themselves on the back all the time about their impartiality and their accuracy. I was observing this when I was working there, and that was over 10 years ago. It hasn't got any better. I was sitting in on a talk show once, not as a participant, but as a writer, and a segment of the show involved a phone-in quiz. There were two people left at the end, a man and a woman, and there was a discussion between the producer and the presenter before the phone calls were made about which of these two should win. This was supposed to be a competition, I want to remind you. The producer said they should let the man win because a woman had won the last quiz. And I said, you shouldn't do that. And they said, oh, it's just a bit of fun. And you could tell that, well, I could tell that they thought I was being a frightful blue nose about it, because I was insisting that what was supposed to be a quiz, a non-fixed quiz, was in fact fixed. They said over the air that the questions that were going to be read out were completely random, which of course they weren't. And they ended up asking the man, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something along the lines of, what's the capital of France? And then they asked the woman, again, I don't remember, but it was along the lines of, what's the speed of light in a vacuum? Something like that. I was quite annoyed. I was angry because it was dishonest, not only to the audience, but even worse, it was actually potentially damaging to the woman. Look, it was supposed to be the luck of the draw on those questions, and that woman would easily have ended up thinking that the question that came up was just a matter of luck, her bad luck, and that she was unlucky. And if it just so happened that she'd had a run of bad luck up to then, well, it would have made her feel worse, wouldn't it? It could have had serious consequences. And they thought this was all just a bit of fun. They didn't care diddly squat about it. And it was this sort of attitude that encouraged me to keep a distance from the BBC. You see, it's the entertainment industry. And the entertainment industry is filled with people who use other people as stuff. Other people are material to further their agenda. And their agenda might be just to make an interesting programme, or it might be to prove their point or back up their bias. It doesn't really matter to them. And other people are the putty, out of which they form the shape they want to create. So, this article here, let's see. The BBC was accused of fake news yesterday when it tweeted an account of Donald Trump threatening war on Iran after a reporter misheard the US president. The BBC World News Twitter account informed its 24 million followers. Now, when you've got 24 million followers, you have to have a certain sense of responsibility, don't you? It's 24 million followers that the president had told the United Nations General Assembly that war will follow his decision to reimpose sanctions in the country. In fact, Mr. Trump had said more will follow. And they say the reporter misheard. You mishear what you want to mishear. And everyone knows that mechanism. It's quite easy to prime people into hearing what they actually aren't too sure about hearing. Look, if I say something indistinct, how about, did you hear what I said? Well, I hope this microphone picked it up. But in any case, there are all sorts of experiments on the internet. You can check that out. But you probably didn't catch it. But if I tell you that what I said was, I just ordered dinner. Now I'm going to say it again, and I'll try and say it the same way. I just ordered dinner. Did you hear I just ordered dinner then? And honestly, I don't know if that microphone got it, and I'm not going to try doing it again if it doesn't come out. But as I said, you can always look that up on the internet. But you probably did hear it if the microphone picked that up, because people can be primed to hear what they want to hear. And what that reporter wanted to hear was that Trump is a hot-headed, out of control warmonger. So he heard war will follow instead of more will follow. And it didn't occur to him to think, hang on a minute, that can't be right. He wouldn't say that in the UN in that way, would he? Because that's not the prevailing opinion in the BBC. And the reporter is a creature of the BBC culture. No, he jumped on that interpretation and tweeted it out. Of course, as soon as it went out, the site was inundated with responses from people telling him he'd heard it wrong. Okay, so that was one reporter mishearing something he wanted to mishear. But then what did the BBC do? Well, they sat on it for 20 hours before they retracted it. Yeah, 20 hours. And why? Well, I told you this thing about stuff, didn't I? Such an outrageous claim would have brought more traffic to their site, wouldn't it? Accuracy be damned. Wow, this is a great story, isn't it? That's going to get us thousands of extra hits. It's just a bit of fun, isn't it? Except it isn't, because that sort of fun could start a war. When a country as unstable as Iran hears something like that, who knows how they're going to react? It's quite possible they could decide to get their defence in first and start shooting off all over the place. It's certainly getting them ready for that sort of thing. But you see, this is great theatre. Until it isn't, of course. Now, I brought this up because I can see this going on in America right now in the Kavanaugh circus, with Democratic politicians sitting on explosive stories. I understand Feinstein knew about this accusation weeks before, but she didn't bring it up until the very last minute. So she was sitting on this story, and there are even more of doubtful provenance, and then they're bringing them up at the very last minute in an attempt to cause the greatest impact. And you know what? It reminds me of those Perry Mason episodes, you know, where his client is about to be sent to the electric chair and then he dashes in at the last minute clutching a poisoned wardrobe and points to the witness on the stand who's been the main witness for the prosecution and saying, "You did it." And then this guy saying, yeah, I did it, and I'm glad, I tell you, glad. Or words to that effect. And here we've got this steadily and ludicrously mounting set of increasingly bizarre accusations being wheeled out by mostly, as far as I can make out, the Democrats and their media friends, right at the very last minute before this guy's due to be confirmed. It's not an accident that it is starting to resemble some sort of Hollywood plot, because the Democrats get their support from Hollywood. And in this association, they're doing exactly what that talk show was doing. Their friendly news outlets are hearing what they want to hear and putting out inaccurate reports, and their politicians are playing to this and thinking they're gaining points. But what they are doing, of course, is undermining the democratic process by calling into question, with spurious enquiries that seem more spite than politics, they're calling into question the whole process of inquiry. They're destroying people's faith in the democratic process, but they don't seem to care about that, because they're not saying it's all a bit of fun. They're saying that's politics, isn't it? But that's not politics. Or that used to be politics during the time of the ancient Greeks, I suppose. It's not the politics that we're supposed to be having now. It's not the politics that our system is set up to nurture. And I'm sure they got these techniques from their friends over in the entertainment industries. As I said, this is a Perry Mason plot. So, look, now you know about that BBC quiz. How much faith are you going to put in any more BBC quizzes? And how many more critics of the Trump administration are, and there are people with genuine and proper criticisms of the Trump administration, but how many of them are you going to believe? Now, even if they're right. I'm very grateful for financial contributions, but if you don't want to give money, you can still help a lot by sharing this and other videos I've made. Also, remember to check your subscription from time to time, as sometimes subscriptions get erased for one reason or another. Till next time.